All right, we're here today to talk about a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about medicine. We need to move on from just capturing these isolated snapshots of a patient's health to a system that actually understands their entire story. It's about going from a single picture to the full narrative. So let me start with a question for you. What if our most critical medical data, the very information we count on to make these huge, life-altering decisions, what if it has a kind of amnesia? What if it's systematically forgetting the single most important piece of information of all? The passage of time.
Because there is a moment that never ever shows up in the record. It's not some dramatic event, it's not the acute crisis. No, it's the quiet, subtle shift that happens at home. It's that moment a husband or wife notices that, the stairs just seem a little bit harder for their partner today.
That moment, that slow accumulation of tiny little changes, it happens in the gaps. It happens between the doctor's appointments, between the official reports, and most critically, it happens in all those months and sometimes years, between the scans. That is our blind spot.
And this really gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Our current system, it is incredibly good at taking pictures. But when a clinician compares today's MRI to one from 6 months ago, the system itself has no memory of the journey between those 2 points. It is functionally blind to the trajectory of a disease.
So this brings us right to the fundamental problem that we have to solve, this gaping hole in the medical record. We're missing the crucial context of time.
For chronic neurodegenerative diseases like MS or Alzheimer's, it's catastrophic. The damage doesn't happen all at once. It's this quiet, relentless accumulation of tiny changes. And by the time those changes are obvious enough for the human eye to easily spot on a scan, the damage is very often irreversible.
To really understand the stakes here, we have to look at a life that's actually lived between the scans. Because this isn't just about data points on a chart. It's about the real human lives that are unfolding in those gaps.
This is Rob Cridge. He was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis way back in 1995. But, his diagnosis isn't his whole story. Not even close. In the 28 years since, he's carried the Olympic torch, he's won world sailing titles, he's raised a family. An entire, vibrant life has unfolded in the time between his scans. Rob sees his own journey as a series of crossroads, just hurdles to overcome with this incredible positivity. But the medical system that's supposed to be tracking his disease? Well, it often just saw a series of static images. It was completely unable to comprehend the full story of his journey or the subtle progression of his condition over time.
So how do we fix this? We build a system that actually honors that journey. It's time we give medicine a memory.
The solution is what we call a longitudinal MRI pipeline. And really, it's a fundamental shift in thinking. We stop treating each MRI scan like a separate event, and we start treating it as a single frame in a continuous movie of a patient's health. Think of it like version control for the human body.
And this really shows you the change in perspective. The old system asks a very limited question. Hey, does this look different from the last one? But the new system, it asks a much, much more powerful question. What is the rate of change? What is the pattern of progression since the very beginning?
So here's how it works. It's actually pretty elegant. First, a patient's very first scan becomes their unique, permanent baseline. Then every new scan they get, doesn't matter what machine it's on, is automatically mapped right back to that original state. The system then precisely calculates the changes, the transition, quantifying subtle tissue loss or lesion growth that's literally invisible to the naked eye. So what the doctor gets is not just another picture, but objective, hard evidence of the disease's trajectory.
Okay, so what does this mean in practice? What actually happens when clinicians can finally see the full patient narrative, the whole story?
Let's look at a real-world scenario. Over 3 years, a patient has multiple MRIs. In the standard system, the report just keeps saying the same thing, no significant interval change. So, treatment stays the same. But our longitudinal system, because it's analyzing the entire history, it flags a statistically significant acceleration in tissue loss. Now, it's still subtle, maybe not obvious to the eye, but it's real. And that triggers a proactive adjustment in treatment, potentially years before a major disability would have shown up.
And this is the ultimate value proposition. We are moving from a reactive model, where we basically wait for obvious damage to happen, to a truly proactive one. The system can see the storm clouds gathering on the horizon, giving clinicians the chance to act before the damage becomes permanent.
This is so critical, because what we're building here isn't just a feature or some single product. This is foundational infrastructure for the entire future of intelligent healthcare.
We're using multiple sclerosis as the proving ground, right? It relies so heavily on these serial MRIs, but once this infrastructure exists,
Its application is just vast. Think about it. Tracking tumor growth, monitoring Alzheimer's progression, assessing stroke recovery, even making drug trials more efficient and accurate. This becomes the essential memory layer that all future healthcare AI is going to be built upon.
So the one takeaway I want to leave you with today is this. The next great leap in healthcare AI won't come from just making slightly smarter algorithms. It's going to come from building systems that can finally remember. By giving medicine a memory, we create the foundation for intelligence to truly compound, and we transform how we see, how we understand, and ultimately how we fight chronic disease. Thank you.